March 23rd, 2023 meeting minutes, discuss and approve. Do we have any changes, questions? If none, can we get a motion, please?
So moved. Second.
Motion to accept, even second. Any more discussion? There is none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? The ayes have it. Old business, Sun Builders, ID number 23-02, informational meeting, continued from March 23rd, 2023. Major land development, master plan review, AP 35, lots 1, 1A, 1D, and 2, 270 Putnam Pike, 8.29 acres approximately. Highway commercial zone, applicant Sun Builders Inc., owners Sun Builders Inc. and Cloverleaf RET LLC, engineer Crossman Engineering.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is Timothy Kane. I'm an attorney licensed to practice law in the state of Rhode Island, and I have an office at 627 Putnam Pike. I do represent Sun Builders, and obviously we're before you tonight for a master plan application. My clients were before you a few months ago for a pre-app, so you get a somewhat of a look at the plan. As you know, the property is located in a highway commercial zone, and it is mostly vacant with the exception of 2 structures. So it's, I would argue, being right off a highway, it's certainly underdeveloped. My client is hoping to move forward and put the property to productive use, hopefully add to the tax base of the town of Smithfield, provide employment opportunities, and retail and amenity opportunities for the residents and the people in the surrounding area. So as you can see from the plans, which our engineer will walk you through shortly, we're proposing, or my client is proposing, a car wash on the northerly side of the property closest to Route 44. And then towards the southerly side of the property, again, which the engineer will walk you through, there are several retail units. Unfortunately, it looks like we lost what we thought was going to be an anchor tenant, which was Big Bear Hunting and Supply. We don't know if they're coming back, but right now they're not in the picture. And so they were going to be an anchor tenant. There was also proposed to be an indoor shooting range, but that looks like it may not happen or probably won't happen. However, we'll still be looking at the aggregate of about 30,000 square feet of retail back there. That's basically the footprint of those buildings. It might take a slightly different configuration, but I would submit to you that the concept remains the same. And then on the Johnston side, you can see where the town line is. There'd be 21 residential condominiums back there. As you may be aware, the process which we have to follow is to come before you first and obtain master plan approval, which is conditional approval. Then we have to go to the zoning board for a special use permit for the car wash. And that involves also a full public hearing, notice to all the abutters and vetting there. And we need one setback from the rail lot line for the retail from the property line in the rear there, dimensional variance. And then if we get that far, we come back to you for preliminary, and that means the project's engineered. So I know you're going to have questions of the experts, and I'm sure maybe some concerns. So without further delay, and I know you have somewhat of a long agenda tonight, I'm going to bring up Brian King, who's a professional engineer with Crossman Engineering, and ask that he walk you through the plans. After Mr. King, we have John Shevlin with Power Engineering. He's a traffic engineer, and he will summarize his traffic report, and I'm sure they're going to be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you and good evening. My name is Brian King from Crossman Engineering. We have prepared the master plan submission for this mixed-use development. I did bring a testing. Okay, so I did bring a flash drive that had the plan set, which we were going to bring up on the board, but looks like there's some technical difficulty. So as a Boy Scout, I was prepared. And I do have some handouts, if I could pass out some handouts. Now, this is a partial set of what was provided in the master plan submission. So, okay, I'm going to go through the handouts. I'm sure you're all aware of the location of the project, and the planning department memorandum was very detailed. But just as a quick once over again, so the property is on the south side of Route 44. It's just east of the 295 northbound off-ramp. The applicant, Mr. Lafredo, owns 7 lots. 4 of them are in Smithfield, and 3 are in Johnston. The 4 in Smithfield are 6.8 acres, and then the Johnston ones are 7.3, a little over 14 acres in total. The property has 550 feet of frontage, and 3 of those lots in Smithfield are off Route 44. The property is zone highway commercial, and the first sheet that I had passed out is an aerial showing the location of the site with the surrounding properties, and you can see that much of the surrounding properties is vacant. It's either bordered by Putnam Pike, Route 44, 295, or wooded land that's for the most part undeveloped. I also provided an existing conditions plan in the packet that I passed out, and it does show the 7 different parcels, both in Smithfield and in Johnston. And it also shows the contour lines. The property does have a very steep slope, which is why when we get to the roadway plan, the roadway is aligned the way we're proposing it. The next plan on sheet C5 is the conceptual site layout plan. This is the plan that shows what's being proposed for both Smithfield and Johnston. So in Smithfield, we'll concentrate on that. There's 3 parcels that we're subdividing the land into. One parcel, we're showing a proposed car wash. It's about 1.5 acres in size. The existing lot, Lot C, will remain the same. Lot C will be 1.5 acres as well. And then the upper lot, Lot B, as we're calling it, will be 4 acres. That's for retail use. As Attorney Kane mentioned, the large user in that retail space may not come to this site, but the intent for this area is still retail of a comparable size that we're proposing on this plan. We do have some other areas in Smithfield that we're calling common land, and those areas would be for stormwater management. The plan is to have a landowners association, which would be responsible for the maintenance of any stormwater improvements. The roadway that we're showing is intended to be a private roadway, but we will follow the Smithfield design regulations for a roadway. It's going to be 30-foot wide pavement, 40-foot wide right-of-way easement. Because of the steep slopes, we did have to make this road in sort of a curved alignment, and there's retaining walls that will be required on both sides of the road. We also provided a conceptual grading and drainage plan, and this plan does show conceptual piping and catch basin locations and also some stormwater locations. We're thinking that when the final design comes about, there'll be a mix of stormwater basins and also underground systems. We are expecting some rocks and ledge, so that would probably be where their underground detention systems are, and then the stormwater basins would be where we get the water quality and infiltration. The design that we do for the stormwater will have to follow the DEM design standards for stormwater, and we'll have to make sure that there's no increase in peak flow. We'll provide water quality, non-water recharge, and water quality pretreatment. So at final design, a DEM stormwater and RIPDES permit will definitely be needed. As far as utilities, we did provide another plan that had shown some conceptual utility locations. We are lucky enough where on Putnam Pike, there is water, sewer, gas, electric. So those services will be tapped in off to Putnam Pike and brought into the development for these uses, and then they would be extended up actually to their property line with Johnson for that future development. So this is the conceptual plans that we had put together to show what the intent of the development is for this parcel. It's mixed use. We're showing a car wash, and we're showing some retail spaces. So if there's any questions on the plans, I'd be happy to answer.
The car wash, you notice the hours of operation. So it's not going to be open. You tell me what the hours are.
Well, right now, it's, everything is still in the conceptual stage. There's no actual, P&S agreement. So particular car wash has not been chosen yet, but I think the hours of operation would probably be similar to a car wash,
Yeah.
seven, I'm just guessing, 7 to 7 or something like that, 7 to 9.
Well, my point to that question is in the survey that the traffic that you did shows it's not going to be open. It's at 6 o'clock, the traffic.
Right.
If that's open, there's going to be a lot more traffic than what the survey is showing. And then also the question is self-serve bays. They're going to be open all the time. So my question is, do you think it's an adequate traffic flow that was reported in here, 24 cars?
Well, actually, the spaces shown in the car wash, that would be for vacuum, for vacuum spaces.
Yeah, well,
And every.
my point is it's going to be more, my question to you is, do you think that the survey was adequate on the car wash, amount of cars?
As far as the number of vacuum spaces?
Well, the numbers of going in and out, the exits and entrance, you have it like 24 for the day.
Okay, so actually, as far as, if it's a traffic-related question, John Shevlin from PAR Engineering actually focused on the traffic end, so he might be better to answer the traffic question. But as far as the site goes, those vacuum spaces would be, a lot of times it's customary to have complimentary vacuum, free vacuums for anyone using a car wash, but I'm not sure if I'm answering your question.
Well, he just told me, my question is like that, I wanted to know the hours.
Okay, that might be a better traffic-related question, as far as, because that was, I'm sure, looked at in the report.
And the type of retails, is it going to be like sandwich shops going to be in there?
Yeah, unfortunately, there's no defined retail user, but the total size that we have on the master plan for the retail and the rifle range, which is not going to be there. The reason why the plans still show the large user, the outdoor outfitter, and the rifle range is because they were in play when we submitted the plans. Since then, there's been some changes, but the total area of the retail in the range is around 30,000 square feet.
So thank you. I'm just trying to figure out the car wash, because like I said, I couldn't figure out the hours.
Yeah, I can't answer that right now.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is John Shevlin, registered professional engineer, work for Park Corporation. I've been doing traffic work for about 33 years. Educational background, graduated from UMass Amherst. Also took traffic classes at Georgia Tech and also the University of Rhode Island. As I mentioned, I'm registered professional engineer. I've testified in most planning boards, zoning boards throughout the state over my years. So Park Corporation, we were hired to go ahead and perform a traffic study for the proposed development. We're very familiar with this site. Was involved with the Smithfield Village project for many years, so I know this area very well. I've been in front of Mr. Moen and the board many times for that project. We know the area. Just to become more familiar, though, we did perform recent field visits just to see, what's changed out there and the operations and stuff. So we are very familiar with the project. We're also with the surrounding area and also with the project, work with the applicant. We went ahead and we prepared a preliminary traffic impact analysis report, which I think you all have a copy of. To go ahead and perform that, we went ahead, we did go ahead and coordinated the scope of the area with the planner. We felt with the uses that they had here, we're looking at major areas as far as the ramp and also the Esmond Street Putnam Pike intersection, and then the proposed site driveways are the areas that we focused on. The first task we performed was the data collection phase. So as I mentioned before, we did field reviews of the area, just go ahead and confirm that nothing's really changed out there since we looked at it a few years back. We also went out there, took speeds, stops and sight distances. We measured, pavement widths, lane widths and such, and the traffic control devices to look at those. We performed recent turning counts. We performed those on a typical weekday from 7 to 9 in the morning during the peak hours, in the afternoon 4 to 6, and a Saturday midday count from 11 to 1. And we also performed 2 counts on Putnam Pike in the vicinity of the northbound ramp, and we got information from the northbound ramp as well, from I-295 to get the weekday and weekend counts. We took a look with, work habits that are going on right now within the industries, people working from home and such. We didn't want to, as that seems to be always changing. We went back, we looked at our counts that we did in 2017, and we found that those counts were higher than what we counted now, so we remained conservative. Used our 2017 counts, but we did go ahead and put a growth factor on those to bring them to 2023 conditions to be very conservative on those. So I think the numbers that we have based on those counts are higher than what you see is going on right now. But like I said, things maybe are changing over time, so we'll go there. We also went ahead and obtained crash data from the Smithfield Police Department for a 3-year period from January 2020 through December 31 of 2022. We reviewed this information to see if there's any patterns in certain areas for crash data and see if there's any ways to go ahead and mitigate that. I won't go over the existing condition. I think everybody's familiar in regards to the roadway system out there, so I won't spend a lot of detail on that. So I'll go into more in regards to some of our analysis. The safety analysis performed for our study, we looked at the crash data, speeds, characteristics of the roads, alignments of the roads, and we determined site distances. We obtained information. It was about a half-mile study area. It was basically from 295 down to an area east of the Dunkin' Donuts on Putnam Pike. Over the time, the crashes that we saw were, it was about 12% that resulted in some kind of injury, minor injury. It didn't seem like from any of the reports we reviewed there's any major crashes out there. But then there's also, it seemed like a large percentage of those are rear end, which you find at signalized intersections from cars stopping, going, not paying attention, or somebody coming out the ramp, going ahead and starting to go to the yield and then hit the brake. So, that's common in these types of layouts for crashes. There's also many angle crashes coming out of the driveways for Speedy and Dunkin' Donuts. And again, I think a lot of those were indecisions as far as people pulling out, stopping, getting into the traffic stream. So we did take those into account as well. As far as the site distance measurements at the proposed driveway, we did go out there and take a look to see how far you can see up and down the road based on the speeds. And based on our measurements, the sites that are coming out of that driveway, go ahead and they do exceed the guidelines that are in the American Association of State Highway Transportation Officials design policies on roadway designs. Site distance really at the site, because we are looking to go ahead and propose to put a traffic signal in there. So site distance doesn't come into that big of an issue with a traffic signal in there, but we still wanted to check that just in case. The traffic impact analysis that we performed, we looked at 3 different conditions. This is where you got to pay attention. So we looked at existing conditions, which are current traffic volumes now, and what the roadway configuration that's out there right now. We looked at 2 other conditions. That's the future no build, which goes out 5 years. So we project traffic volumes out for 5 years and what that's going to be. And then we look at future build conditions. We compare the future no build to the future build. The future no build conditions. So what we did, we took the approved volumes from the 2022 future build in our study for Smithfield Village, and used those as a future build numbers. Those were all based on the volumes going to be occur for Smithfield Village and other developments at the time that we included in our study. So those numbers we used for the future no build condition. Same thing with the, we also, because it was 2022 that those numbers were projected to when we did the study, we also had a growth factor to bring those up to 2028. So we expanded those out 6 years with an annual growth rate. The future build conditions, the future conditions, we also did our analysis based on the approved roadway improvements that have been approved as part of the Smithfield Village. So those will be incorporated as far as what's going to be done there. So those who may not know, the plans have been included that we had for the Smithfield Village outside improvements. And I'll just tell you briefly what we're looking to go ahead and put in there. It's going to be striping for lane configuration that's going to be changed on Putnam Pike. It's going to be an additional left turn lane from Putnam Pike to Esmond Street. So there'll be 2 left turn lanes that are going to be going in there. There's some widening that's occurring on Putnam Pike. There's widening of Esmond Street to accommodate the 2 left turn lanes in the merge. Then we're looking at other, the new, like I said, new traffic signals to be put in at Esmond Street and Putnam Pike. And then we're also looking for some striping and signage upgrades as well. So as far as the future no build, we also coordinate with the town planners if there's any other developments that are occurring within the area that may impact this. At this time, as reported, there's no other development that need to be included for future no build, so we did not add any more of those on there. For the future build conditions, we took the future no build and we added the proposed trips that could be generated from the site. So we had the uses that we had in there, between the retail, the shooting range, car wash, the residential. We determined using the ITE trip generation manual that's put out. And that's a publication that is put out where there's a lot of different types of land uses, and they determine regardless how many trips are generated for a particular type of development based on typically like the square footage. You expand those to determine how many trips are going to be. So we did take a look in regards to what those volumes are going to be during the AM, PM, and Saturday peak hours. And the numbers that we have generated for the site, in the morning we had 69 total trips. And to answer your questions, we broke down the volumes you see here, broken down to the morning peak hour, the afternoon peak hour, and the Saturday. The car wash, ITE does not have any information in regards to a car wash, this type of car wash. So we assume that's, 5 minutes of car wash, we assume it'd be 24 in an hour. The morning we did show money because typically you do not see during the morning weekday cars going into a car wash. If you do, you see it, a straggler here and there. But at 7:30 to 8:30 in the morning, we didn't include anything in there. There could be a small number potentially, but again, going back to the hours and how many are going to occur during the morning peak hour, we didn't carry anything during the morning peak hour. The shooting range that was there, that's another use that's not in ITE. So we're trying to find a similar use, and you'll see in our report that we actually went with a bowling alley as far as something that has a similar number of lanes. Seems like people go in and out probably about the same duration that they would at a shooting alley or a shooting range. So we went ahead and assumed that that's going to be a similar type of use. Yeah, I think the numbers are pretty close in regards to what the shooting range may be, if it was put in place. But we wanted to go ahead and make sure we covered some of the volumes in there to make sure we carry that. One thing we didn't do, the retail component. A lot of times when you have a retail use, and again, we don't know what this is going to be. We use it as a strip plaza that's going to be in there, so it could be a variety of stores. But that is a number that we're able to get out of ITE. But those types of uses do have pass-by trips, and what those are trips are usually or are in the traffic stream already. They're stopping on their trip. So they're not a new car into the roadway system, but they are a new trip to the site, but they're coming out of there. But we did not take that into account. We assumed all the trips into the retail area were going to be new trips, so we did not take into account the pass-by trips. For the future build conditions, just what we're proposing right now is a signalized intersection that's going to be incorporated in the driveway, which will be lined up, as mentioned before, with the Smithfield Village driveway. So that'll be a four-way intersection with a signal. That signal will be coordinated with the signal on Esmond Street and Putnam Pike. So they'll be working together as far as when the traffic is released. When it's stopped at the intersection, will be released down at Esmond Pike, and cars will be able to get out and flow into the traffic stream that way. So that's something that we'll work with DOT. We had that conversation with DOT as far as what we're looking to do out there, and they stated, when you get to a point before you go to preliminary, we got to get our PAPA before we go to preliminary. So that'll be all part of the process as far as finalizing some of the details on that. As far as the ramp goes, right now we're showing the merge in there with the yield. We have talked about, and we'll work with DOT on this in regards to whether it'd be better off to go ahead and tee that up and make that a stop, to have cars come to a stop. It's something that DOT said, something that we certainly could look into, but we haven't gotten that far as far as designing anything on the roadways. We're just trying to do a traffic study that went with the master plan submission, trying to get an idea in regards to how it would operate. So the operations of the signals, when we ran those during the weekday AM peak, the overall intersection continued to operate at level service C, which is good level of service. There was one slight decrease for the left turn movement from Putnam to Esmond Street, which went from level service C to level service D, which level of service D is still considered a very acceptable level of service. Then the PM peak, again, the intersections between the future no build and build, again, operate at level service C as well, the overall intersection. And there was a couple movements that went from level service C to D, and then there was one movement that went from B to C, but still worked very well. Now, the Saturday peak, again, this overall intersection level of service does go to level service D overall, but it does work in that area. There's some slight decreases from a couple of the movements as well, from Esmond Street to Putnam Pike and such. So all in all, there's no decrease in level of service for the intersections between the no build and the build. In the worst case, level of service C. So we anticipate these will go ahead and be able to operate well in this area. As I mentioned before, with the signalized intersection, we are looking to go ahead and take that Smithfield Village, which at the time is going to be a right turn out only, what was approved before. Now with a signal there, they will be able to go ahead and make that both a right turn, left turn, which will in a way help Esmond Street traffic, because more will be going ahead and use the signalized intersections instead of have to go down and then tie in into Esmond Street. So there could be some benefits in regards to traffic at that intersection as well. So that's basically in regards to what we have performed for the traffic study. The results show there's no real significant decrease in level of service or traffic capacity. I think with the accidents we found, it seemed like I said before, between the stop and go at some of the intersections and such, and then the area down by the Dunkin' Donuts and such, that we don't feel that this price can go ahead and increase the safety, or decrease, I guess, the safety down in those areas. So, we know moving forward for this project, there's things that we need to do. We need to continue coordination with Smithfield Village, the developer of Smithfield Village, and also we need to go through the DOT process, seeing this is a state road. So we'll go ahead and we'll be working with them in regards to going ahead and finalizing any site or any off-site plans, and also the traffic study. They're going to have to go ahead and review that along with the stormwater improvements for the site design. So we'll be working with them as we go forward. It's a summary of what we pulled together. More than happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. I read your report. I spent a couple of days looking at this, and it's quite a concern, and I just don't have enough time to really understand. I'm trying to understand a lot of this. The person who's purchased the car wash, right? He's going to go into business to make money, and he's only going to have 24 cars coming out. I don't understand how that car wash and the service of those cars going in and out of there seems to me like it's going to be a little bit more than it's generated, for one thing. And without knowing the type of stores that are gonna be in there, like at 12 o'clock, what hours? In other words, if there's sandwich shops versus retail people shop different time. So your hours with peak hours, 6 o'clock, this one, that one, 7 o'clock, or something like that. I give you a lot of credit, but I don't know how you can make these decisions without knowing these facts.
Yeah, you understand, the car wash, those 24 trips are in the course of an hour. 24 people using the car wash in an hour. That's not all day.
Well, it says, oh, that,
Yeah, those are just the peak hours for each one. We're anticipating there's going to be 24 trips coming in, 24 going out, so
Yeah,
there's
but
48 trips.
It has 0 from 6 o'clock to 6 o'clock. It says
No, it's 0 from 7 to 9 a.m.
7 to 9. All right,
Yeah.
so 0 to 9.
Yeah, and like I said, the car washes that, I've seen, there's not a lot of traffic on a weekday morning at a car wash.
With self-service, though, there are a lot of, if you go down in Providence, you'll see them, they're 24/7 down in there. That's why they're very big money makers.
That's not a self-service car wash.
Right.
Those are vacuums.
This is the tunnel that's going to have the,
Vacuum.
yeah.
Or something like that. But I'm saying, too, that's what I'm saying. I just don't see, and what kind of shops are going to be. Traffic.
Yeah, unfortunately, that is an unknown right now, and that's why
Everything else seems good. It just seems like the traffic just seems like there's gonna be like on Esmond Street.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the use that we had, the Strip Plaza, again, they've done studies and they taken counts at Strip Plazas literally throughout the country to determine what a typical rate is for a Strip Plaza. So all those, I'm sure they all have different uses. Unfortunately, we don't know exactly what's gonna be going in here, so we can't say it's gonna be,
Well, I'm just saying that to me, that could make a difference.
Yeah.
A big difference at certain hours.
Sure.
That's all I'm asking about.
Sometimes you don't know until you know. If it's retail, it's retail. It could be a flower shop, it could
Well,
be
that's what I'm saying,
a
Tim.
shop,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
we don't get off first base unless we get some approvals and build a building and find a tenant, unfortunately. And I'm sure when we go before the zoning board, because you guys have different things you look at, right? They're gonna wanna know all about hours of operation, and they usually put reasonable conditions.
Right.
That type of thing. A little more, it's not that it's not your peer review, but that's something that the zoning board, well, you guys look at overall layout, you look at traffic, drainage, all those types of things. Zoning board definitely gets into lighting. You do too a little with your site plan review, hours of operation, and they have the authority to put conditions on those types of houses. I think the only thing with the traffic is we are at a master plan stage, so it is conceptual. The devil is in the details. Is use the best information that we can get. If we're showing retail, we use a Strip Plaza, generally. That's
My point about that is it could be a big difference.
yeah. And the other thing on retail,
It could be nothing or it could be something.
when we get specific uses for retail, and Mike can correct me if I'm wrong, left the room. I think we have to go back before the zoning board for a special use permit on particular uses. And we might have to do some traffic, we'll have to address traffic concerns. So if they say, you got three buildings in here that generate so much, because now we can get specific with our traffic numbers, and you got another one, well, they might not like it, a specific use if you're generating so much traffic. So those things will be looked at again down the line. I think for master, we can only give you what we have right now. That's the information. Thank you.
I would say one thing that's a little more control over this than other projects is the fact that there is a light there as well. So entering and exiting is controlled by a light. It's not like people are trying to pull out onto 44 with no light. So there is a queue per se, even if there's 20 cars backed up, that's controlled by a timed light. So that's a big difference here as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You need a light to get people safely out of this. And on the other side, and sooner or later, they're gonna be developed, right on the highway. It's taking a long time. You don't see many pieces of property right off the highway that are developed.
Even the survey shows that the traffic, that there's more rear-end accidents.
There's rear-end accidents down at the intersection of Putnam and Esmond. Yeah.
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 There won't be more rear-ends.
I mean, I think it's, you know, it's based on volume down that area in the operation. I mean, as far as, you know, there is fund. It's good reading, huh?
It says that, it's one of my things, it says, a lot of rear-end accidents are
Yeah.
caused at intersections with lights.
Yeah.
Can't get to sleep some night.
But
Need to make an
that
audio book
intersection
of it.
too, though, there is a lag going on at that intersection with the curb cuts, where this intersection is
Or
really
not.
going to be two driveways in the roadway. So,
It's not
no,
a safe thing.
yeah.
The report has a study about accidents, and the conclusion is the relative severity is low. What was the basis of the conclusion that the severity was low? Was it just looking at a police report as opposed to any further
It was.
inquiry?
It was the police reports. So we went through those,
May or may not.
and it was, you know, somebody went in and, you know, some said, you know, they complained that they had an achy back from the hit and stuff, but it didn't seem like, you know, there was some that went ahead were, you know, taken by ambulance, but more, it seemed like it was more precautionary from when you read the reports, but it was all based on just reading the reports in regards to, you know, if there's any real significant in there.
Were there any other traffic mitigation uses that you considered but did not ultimately choose to conclude as part of your report?
I mean, the big one is obviously is the signal at the entrance. You know, we felt that, you know, make it safer there, you know, instead of trying to go across 3 lanes of traffic, a signal would be very beneficial for getting in and out of the site. Then as I mentioned before, the other thing is, you know, right now we looked at the ramp, but we may go ahead and we will go ahead and take a look before we meet with DOT to see if it makes sense to go ahead and square that up. But we don't want to go ahead and create a problem too, with people on the ramp and backing that up. You know, it's a pretty long ramp, but, you know, so we're looking to see what the best alternative is for that. And it seems like right now with the merge seems to be the best option right now.
Thanks. Okay. On the plans, it shows, let's see, where are they?
Is that the site plan for the proposed development, Mike?
C5, it's,
Okay,
it's
yeah.
on, it's in your,
Yep.
C5 shows existing curb cuts to remain. Now, those are currently serving the car lot? Is that?
The car lot and I believe Mr. Lafredo's office.
Okay, so how long are they going to remain? Considering that you're planning a major access point with a control, and it's showing, do you know how long they're going to remain? Is that?
Well, I don't know, Mr. Lafredo, if you want to answer that as far as, want to know how long the curb cuts will remain for the two that you have there for your existing buildings? Yeah.
So I would say that, I'm out of here, and so.
Oh, me too.
So I would say that for right
Mr.
now.
Lafredo, I'm sorry, can you just state your name, please? Just-
Oh, David Lafredo. I would say for right now, we would leave the curb cuts as such. So if something's gonna happen over there, when we actually, if you approve all this, the main thoroughfare, which would be the access to get in, ultimately probably what would happen is if we do something in the gas station portion, we would close, this would be my intention, close the first one, which lines up, and leave the second one would be a right out only. So this way it would ease some of the traffic burden away from the light. So if you're doing something there, going,
That's exactly what I was thinking. Great, yeah, thank you very much. Then, I guess my next question is kind of a general one, but you mentioned Smithfield Village, and a lot of your planning is, and what this board comes to the conclusion, it kind of rides on that, what's happening across that street. And as far as we know, their council was in some months ago, said that that they're going back to the blackboard, and this board's totally in the dark as to what's going to happen there. And have you have you had any discussions with their team as to what is going to happen? It's going to play into.
It does.
It's going to play into your traffic analysis for this project.
It does, and I did have conversations with Joel, with Attorney Rocco, to find out what the status is. I know they got a year extension in front of the planning board. I know DOT, they're going ahead, they have approval. I know DOT wants to go forward as far as the land taking on the gas station site. There's going to be a widening there, so they're going to go ahead and take a strip. So DOT is looking forward to go forward with that. As far as, going back to the board, I know they, I think they're having issues with the hotel, but I know they're looking to go ahead and develop something. They're going to do something on that site and want to make sure they have in there, and that what needs to be done as far as going back. But it's something that, like I said, they need to do something within the next 6 months, 7 months. And you're right. I mean, that does change in regards to our study if that's not there. So we took that into account. We're assuming that because with the approvals and the commitment they made for the roadway improvements to the DOT, that's going to happen. And that's part of the conversation we'll have to have with DOT as well, as far as there. I know DOT realizes it's an intersection that needs improvements, but I know they have their 10-year plan, so I don't know, whether it's something they would do. But that's something I got to get more information from Joel and the developer.
My follow-up questions would be legal, so I don't think they're appropriate at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I didn't hear it, but did your numbers include the potential residential development
It
on the
does.
same road?
Yeah, those were all included in our trip generations.
Okay.
So yeah, we did take those into account.
Okay.
For the residential? Yeah, it's like 19 during the Saturday, during the afternoon, 14, and then in the morning, it was 10 during the peak hour.
Right, thank you.
The proposed condos, so right now, the way it stands, the in and out for that development, when it does come to fruition, is from the 44, from the Smithfield side, correct?
That's correct, yep.
And then the main entrance into this basically lines up with Smithfield Village.
It does.
So the traffic light is going to work.
It's good, yeah,
for
it's gonna
both.
have, yep.
Both.
Yeah, it'll
So
turn that.
basically, the entrance to this development is in between the gas station, the existing gas station, and the proposed car wash right up the middle.
Yes,
correct?
yes, yep,
All right, thank you.
yep.
Does the board have any more questions at this time? Go ahead, Mike.
One thing, Mr. Shepherd, I read the report that with this traffic light, the traffic from this development to create a full access intersection where it was right out.
Yeah, that's correct. We'll go ahead and take a look at making that a right and left out, because currently, with no signal there, it was right turn only. And I did explain that.
So just to clarify, Mike, you're asking about Smithfield Village?
Yeah.
Will be a full right in, right out, left in, left out, yeah.
Which, I also say that, with that occurring, it should help the Esmond Street, because I think a lot of people now will be, the way it's proposed, have to go on to Esmond and come out, and now you could be able to use that light and take some of the traffic off that intersection.
Any more questions?
One,
That did remind me about one question on, in your report, on page 26, we're showing future no build and future build conditions. There was one movement down the bottom, Saturday midday peak hour eastbound. I believe it is
That's
the left turn.
the left turn movement.
Left turn
Yeah.
goes from under no build from a condition of C
Yes.
to with a 155Q, and it goes under 2028 build, it goes down to a level of service E with a Q of 275. Is that something that would change with the new turn movements at the proposed light? Or,
The Esmond Street light?
yeah,
That is based on the configuration of the Esmond Street light. So, and that does bring it down to the stacking lanes that are being proposed.
okay.
So,
Okay. I'll be honest with you, I'm wondering in the back of my mind, I have this imagination, what exactly are your neighbors going to be coming up with, and how is that going to change? I mean, you said they're committed to the improvements, but what will they come at this board with that possibly could change some of your traffic conclusions?
yeah, and I would think that if they do change, that's one thing that we'd have to go ahead and develop a chip generation plan to show that we're not adding more than what's been previously approved.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, you don't know what your neighbor's going to
right,
throw at you.
right.
Okay.
And we're hoping, to get more. I asked Joelle if she can set up a meeting with them so we can, get a better idea where they're at. And like I said, everything that we've done has gone through her. I haven't had any direct communication because I quite honestly don't know.
No, you've done the best you've
Yeah,
done the best you
yeah.
could with the information you
Yeah.
have from them now.
Yeah.
And that's completely understandable.
Yep.
Thank you.
Jim?
So can you just talk about the signal coordination, like once it's said, it's not done, right? Does it need continuous maintenance, or does it need to be programmed or reprogrammed
Yeah,
every so often? And then who does that? Is that DOT? or is
DOT
that
will
the
do
city?
that. They'll check in and see if, things change as far as the timings. So they will be coordinated, but they'll also have actuation. So they'll know when their traffic is free to move because one leg is backed off and they're done. It will turn green for the other one, and they'll be worked. So they're a staggered time on Putnam Pike, and it'll work and talk to each other as far as clear that out, let people come out of the site, and then that's going to turn red, open it up in regards to the eastbound movement, so they can go down there. Then that'll turn red. So it'll be coordinated, and it'll be time to go ahead and allow those movements to occur simultaneously.
Okay, thank you.
And a lot of those details, like I said, we analyzed it as a coordinated signal, again, as, to Mr. Moan's point. And, based on the usage stuff, timings will need to be adjusted in regards to what the traffic volumes are. But we base our analysis based on the trips that we anticipate.
Any more questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Kane, did you have anything else, or? Okay. At this time, if there are no more questions from the board, we'll open up the public hearing at 6:51 PM. If anyone from the public would like to speak at this time, please come up, state your name. Any questions, concerns, comments? I'll ask one more time if there's anybody who'd like to speak. Hearing none, public hearing is closed at 6:52 PM. Let's see, would anyone from the board like to schedule a site visit? From 44, you can actually see it goes pretty far uphill, so.
I've always wanted to drive up that road, but I haven't.
Yeah, I'd like a site visit. We could get into the Johnston section too, correct?
Is it relatively clear? Is it able to be traversed and walked, or is it,
They want to go for site visit, they want to go. Oh, absolutely. And if they're wondering how they get in, and how far up they can go.
we would schedule them.
There's access in the back, if you'd like to pick a time, I'll be more than glad to take you on, they have some road, we actually can drive up there, so we don't have to walk up on the mountain, so.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, could I ask him one more question?
absolutely.
Do you have control of the property in Johnston? Is that
I have control of everything.
the whole, all parcels?
Everything.
Okay, so let's.
So, I'm hearing that the board, oh, John? Yeah. Okay, so I'm hearing everybody would like to have a site visit. So at this time, we will schedule a site visit, and do we want to get back to, Mike, do you want to get back to them with a date? We'll send out an email and,
Yeah, you want to try and look at, maybe Saturday after this.
not this Saturday, the following Saturday? Okay. Tim, do you think that works?
Yeah, absolutely. Whatever works for you, works for us.
Okay. 29th. You can't do that, not Sunday. Okay. What's that? Would the 6th work?
What time? Yeah.
It would probably be in the, 9 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday?
9 o'clock, fine.
Does the 6th work for everybody?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll put it down for the 6th. So we'll need a motion to continue with a pending site visit.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to continue some builders pending site visit to be on May 6th, 2023 at 9 PM, 9 AM, I'm sorry.
9 PM.
Bring your flashlight.
Right.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any more discussion? Tim?
Continue this meeting to a date certain, your next meeting?
Yes.
Our next meeting, yes.
Yeah.
You add that in there.
And also continue this, this project to the next meeting, planning board meeting, which is when, Mike? May 18th, 2023.
So we have an amended motion. We have a second again?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any more discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? The ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. See you Saturday.
Okay, next we have review proposed amendments. Can we get a motion to move this till the end of new business?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to move number 2 to the end of the
Business.
meeting, which is review proposed amendments to the zoning ordinance.
Do a motion? Need a second, please?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Next, we have Stillwater Distribution. And I believe we are looking for a motion to continue till May 18th.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to move still water distribution to May 18th, 2023.
That is the public hearing and request for waivers.
Correct.
We have a motion. Second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, could we just ask the town planner about the timing the clock? Just wanted to get a verification that we are still within a safe.
It is suspended. The clock is suspended.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next, we have 230 to 250 George Washington Highway, ID number 23-04. Major land development, pre-application, concept review, AP 46, lots 67 and 411, 230 and 250 George Washington Highway, 2.53 acres approximately, 2 lots, PCD, EGOD zone, applicant owner Boletto's Realty LLC, engineer Dupree Engineering.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, for the record, Brian P. Thalman, professional engineer and senior project manager with Dupree Engineering. Just want to correct it's actually 2 parcels, AP 46, lot 67 and 411, with a total area of 6.2 acres.
6.2?
6.2, which includes, and I'll get into that, but.
Yep, thank you.
It's been a long time since I've been before this board. It's good to be back before you. I see some familiar faces and some new faces. Having served as the chairman of this board for a period of time, I understand the charge you have before you, and I appreciate all the hard effort and work that you put into your tasks as planning board members. Here before you with Gary Boletto. Gary is in the back. Gary has acquired 2 parcels, and then he's executed a memorandum of understanding with the Department of Transportation to acquire some of the excess right-of-way parcel, which is about 0.24 acres, and as I indicated, brings the project total to about 6.2. We are in the planned corporate district zoning, and additionally, the economic growth overlay district will fall within that. Our purpose here tonight is a pre-application meeting for a major land development project with mixed use of residential, restaurant, and retail components. All are permitted by right within the economic overlay growth district, as well as the zoning ordinance. The location is the northwest corner at the intersections of Route 7 and 116. As you are aware, it's a very vibrant parcel, or very vibrant area within the community based on the application that was before us. Currently, on the 2 parcels, there's an existing single-family dwelling, which is on lot 67. There is a detached garage and an additional outbuilding to the north. Parcel 411 is vacant. There are a variety of wetlands complexes that are on the 2 subject parcels. This particular parcel, specifically lot 67, was the subject of a wetland application by the prior owner, which would have served as the new fire station that the town had proposed. That wetlands permit had been issued. It was reviewed and approved as a formal application. That application was granted in 2020 and then expired in 2021, and the former owner, Thomas Costantino, never renewed the permit, so it has since expired. So anything that we do moving forward would be under a new application. As most of you are aware, the wetlands regulations were amended significantly at the beginning of July of 2023. We have subsequently redelineated all the wetland edges and have, under this plan set, incorporated what are all the revised buffers. None of the subject parcel is in the 100-year floodplain. We had a staff meeting with Mr. Phillips, Mr. Cleary, the assistant zoning official at the end of March. They have suggested that the next step is pre-application before you, and that is our reason for being here tonight. As part of that meeting, it was a great information sharing. There were some very minor comments that were provided during the meeting, and then Chris, the building official, was out of the office the day we met, but he followed up with a subsequent email indicating a couple of concerns that he had. We've looked at this at two different ways, and we've not really taken it much further because I think at this point, and what is the purpose of the pre-application meeting, is to kind of allow some information dissemination between you as planning board members and us as designers and the owner developer. Our anticipated regulatory entitlement process is manyfold. Obviously, we qualify under the Smithfield Major Land Development process, and we are at the first stop, which is the pre-application meeting. We would have subsequently master plan, which is a little bit more developed concept level, move to preliminary, and then ultimately final. As I indicated, we don't see anything that would be requiring a special use permit at this point. At DEM, we're going to have both freshwater wetlands and RIPD stormwater. Department of Transportation would be a physical alteration permit. The Smithfield Water Department, Smithfield Sewer Department, your soil erosion review, and then we'll have to conform with the landscape ordinance, and then ultimately a review by the Smithfield Fire Department. The pre-application, there was some noted constraints to development, specifically the wetlands. It's a little bit of a challenging site. There is some ledge that would be involved that would have to be excavated. They had to ask some questions related to truck and vehicle circulation. When we did develop the concept plans, we did use a 65-foot tractor trailer to confirm turning radiuses could accommodate it. And then the other thing that really we spent a good deal of time on was the logical routes for connecting utilities. There is a high-pressure force main that is on the opposite side of Route 7. Mr. Cleary and I both are in agreement the easiest way for us to get to the sanitary sewer department is actually to traverse the westerly side of the southbound lane of Route 7, cut across 116, and then there is an existing manhole that is in the state right-of-way that connects back into the force main on the east side of the northerly side of Route 7. And that would eliminate having to cross the 7 lanes of traffic that represent Route 7, both north and southbound. We think that is probably a far better alternative. Water is existing. It has been stubbed about halfway through the project on 116. We would probably have to extend that to the westerly terminus of the project with a fire hydrant. And then there where gas is already readily available. So we're in good shape as far as utilities. I think the next steps are what really the planning board, what concerns or questions they may have at this stage, what you would like to see as far as additional studies or information at the master plan level, and your discussion related to a site walk. We would obviously have to do a site walk as part of this project. I'm wondering if it's best to piggyback this with your meeting on the 6th and maybe get 2 sites done. So I know it's Mother's Day weekend, but if it could be accommodated, it would make sense for us. And if the planning board.
Well, how much time are you going to spend at the present?
It's a suggestion. If it doesn't work, I certainly understand that.
Are you looking to come back on the May 18th meeting? Is that what you're?
The deadline for the meeting is probably tomorrow, so I don't see us. We've taken this to a level that's pretty close to master plan, but there's still some additional information. I think the earliest we would probably get here is probably June, depending on, what other information you're looking for at that, but.
So I mean, I think a site visit, if you're requesting that even prior to master plan, I think maybe either the end of May or beginning of June, obviously not Memorial Day weekend, but, I mean, is that common?
Yeah, we'll do that, ask for scheduling.
Schedule it at master plan? Okay.
The one thing that I kind of skipped over and I really wanted to make sure that I had emphasized is we've indicated in your package 2 separate proposals. One is to treat the project as one continuous lot if everything were merged together. And then alternatively is if it were split, where lot 67 would remain its independent parcel with the acquisition of the DOT land, and then 411 would be a separate. The regulations change a little bit in the Economic Growth Overlay District, but ultimately the only real change is the residential component would go from under a single parcel, 21 residential units, to 19 under 2 lots. How the table works is there's a ratio if you're above 5 acres and then a ratio if you're below 5 acres. So all the calculations were done with taking out any of the wetlands, including the jurisdictional setbacks. We approached it from a very conservative nature. So the restaurant, based on what we can accommodate on the site and still be able to manage stormwater and circulation and parking, is 252 seats with 20 employees. Open to whatever comments, suggestions, information, requests the board may have.
I have a question about the sewer. Is that sewer tying in, where it ties in, does it end up flowing, and Mike, you might have the answer to this, does it end up flowing down towards where Maori Commons and down, so that still needs repair, correct?
No, this goes down to Gate City, and yeah, it eventually goes through that bottleneck we have that.
Where Maori Commons is gonna be tying in? Okay.
One other point I did want to clarify is that the access that we are showing on to Douglas Pike or Route 7 is only going to be a right turn in from Route 7 South into the parcel, and then a right turn out into Route 7 South.
The other question I had is what would be besides the number of units, because you have, if you left it all one lot, it appears as though you'd get more units, more residential units.
Two additional residential units.
So what would be the advantage to leaving it 2 separate lots? I mean, obviously, because you're reducing the number of units, so what other advantage would you have? Because it seems like it's a disadvantage to leave it 2 separate lots.
So one of the things is that, the discussions that Mr. Boletto has had with potential uses, most have inquired as whether they can obtain ownership to that restaurant parcel.
The whole parcel, just that parcel?
Yeah.
Okay.
So from a marketing standpoint, while he may sacrifice, it may be more advantageous to bring in. His desire, obviously the market is going to dictate what goes there, but I think if Mr. Boletto has his preference, it would be more of an upscale restaurant as opposed to kind of a tavern style. I think that between Parenti's, Laura's, and Blackie's, they've probably got the market cornered in this particular area. I think something more upscale is his preference. Something that's not going to impact the PM type of traffic. I mean, the AM type of traffic, but more, afternoon type of establishment.
So I guess ultimately, from what I can see here, I mean, that's something that Mr. Boletto would have to determine whether or not it's worth giving up 2 units for the advantage of being able to sell off that one piece.
Yeah, I think it's a question of economics.
Yeah.
What works best.
Okay. Mike?
Well, in this discussion of the alternatives in regards to the one lot or two lot, developing it all together, it doesn't matter to me except for one point. I would like to see the internal road system and access points be coordinated together, so it works together, that access between the two, if it goes to two lot. I would want to see it integrated, so as to reduce the need to access 116 or
Yeah.
That's my only concern with that. I would develop it all. I would develop it all.
For a variety of reasons, it makes an awful lot of sense. First of all, it's only a 6.2 acre parcel, and we are introducing a residential component to that. And I think that probably right now is the highest demand aspect of this project. So I think if it can be structured that the infrastructure is in place to get everybody in and out of there, improves marketability for the residential side.
Yeah, and the other reason, and I understand that, I'm glad we're in the same wavelength. I'm not surprised, but it's just that from what I've seen over the years, it doesn't always work that way.
Touch it once.
With the applicant coming before us.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in touch it once. And to that point, I think every time you introduce another construction activity, you introduce more mobilization and soft costs, which ultimately drive off the cost of the project.
So we'd see a traffic study at one point.
I mean, is your preference to kind of see it at the next stage?
That's not, doesn't have to be. Obviously, the more information the more information you come in with, the better it is for us.
Obviously, my goal is to protect Mr. Boletto's interest in the interest of making sure that you have sufficient information to make your decision and find the appropriate findings of fact. If that makes sense. If not, we have no problem coming back with it at preliminary.
Again, I don't think we can dictate that because it's a question of spending money, right? So it really
we're going to spend it. Yeah, we're going to spend it now, or we're going to spend it later.
Correct. So that's something that I think you guys can you know better than just as well as we do, that the more you come in with, the better off it is, obviously. But again, you come to master plan and
I understand that this is one of many components at this corner, and to your discussion related to Mr. Lafredo's project, I think the more that we can coordinate what we're doing with what Mr. Desperis and potentially Mr. Conti are doing is in everybody's interest. My recommendation would be to Mr. Boletto to, let's take care of it now. The counts are fresh. Let's see if we can't, piggyback on some of the data that's already been
it might be advantageous to speak with his traffic engineer, so you have that data from his project as well.
Yep.
The other thing is, obviously, you could sell pad sites, and keep it one big project and then dedicate certain parking spots
Could
to
be
the
condoized,
restaurant.
yep.
So now they own the pad site, and then, each separate project is its own.
Yep. He has many options right now.
Many options. Any other questions from the board? Rich?
So the residential, are we talking about apartments or are we talking about a hotel?
It would either be apartments or condominiums. It would not be a hotel.
Because it looks like it's wrapped with asphalt right now. The whole
That may
building
be
looks like it's
more
all
of a
asphalt.
drafting,
Okay,
but there is a landscape component that we have to follow.
okay.
One of the things that we are proposing is to incorporate some under-building parking under this.
Okay.
No, on the building.
On the building.
So-
So those of you who may have recently gone to the new Trader Joe's in Providence, there is parking that's underneath the building. We're looking at that type of concept.
I think they just did one in Providence as well, over near the 7-Eleven, Eagle Square.
Yep.
They did the same thing with a garage, and it actually looks really nice.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
I got one, just one.
Go ahead, Ken.
On the restaurant portion, how did you guys arrive at the 256 number for seating?
What we could fit for parking.
Okay.
So obviously that changes
Yeah,
depending on
to
the
be
build
fully
out.
transparent,
Right.
what can we realistically get on the site?
Okay.
Still deal with the stormwater components and the buffers, still have it make sense from a circulation standpoint, and that was the number. Mr. Boletto had some early discussions with somebody, and their requirement was a minimum of 300 seats, and we couldn't satisfy that.
Yeah. 256 seats?
Big restaurant.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Any more questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate
And
your
again, we
time.
also appreciate the opportunity to move one of your agenda items down and move us up. Thank you.
Thank you,
Looking
Mr.
forward to
Boletto.
seeing you again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Buy that bike?
Not yet. Want to buy it?
I'm gonna buy it. I'm gonna get a big discount.
Yeah. Number 4, Ray subdivision, ID number 23-05, minor subdivision preliminary plan review, 0.72 acres approximately, 2 lots, R20 zone, applicant owner J. Theodore Ray and Sandra Ray, surveyor Kelly Land Services, Inc.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. For the record of this case, I'll again state my name's Tim Kane. I'm an attorney licensed to practice law in the state of Rhode Island, and I represent Theodore. We all know him as Ted Ray, and his wife Sandra Ray, who are the owners of the property in their capacity as trustees of their revocable trust, and they've owned this property since 1988 for 35 years. And as you can see from the plans, it's an odd-shaped lot. I call it a bow tie lot. And it houses the business known as Duxbury Array, which is one of our local insurance agents, which my client has run in this town for over 35 years. And they've always been very, very supportive of the community, sports teams and things of that nature. The parking area for the existing insurance building provides parking for 26 cars, so they have more than enough parking for that business. And my client has no plans to expand the building. It serves its purpose. The property is obviously unique because it abuts 3 streets, Bruno Avenue, Arnold Avenue, and Waterman Avenue. And the portion that abuts Arnold Avenue is just kind of, in my mind, sits out there like a sore thumb. It's just extra land. It adds no utility whatsoever to the insurance building. And if you drive by, it looks like a vacant lot. It doesn't look like it's part of the insurance lot. I think my research shows that they were standalone lots at one point, and the town merged them, and it's been sitting that way ever since. Merged them by operation of law. So the property is served by water and sewer. Has noted in your planning department report, the average lot size in that area is approximately 0.24 acres, or a little over 10,000 square feet. And the proposed lot that the Rays are proposing is 0.23 acres, or 10,127 square feet, which is perfectly consistent with the lot size in that neighborhood. The property is in a residential zone, so if you allow the subdivision, and a house was built on that lot, it would be consistent with the residential zone and the neighborhood conditions, and it would further preclude that property from any commercial development. So I would argue that allowing that lot to be cut off and building on a house on it is more consistent with that neighborhood than, commercial development on that property. If you do see fit to grant approval tonight, we have to go to the zoning board, and the public hearing requirements will be satisfied at that point. Everybody within 200 feet gets notified. They can all come in and speak their piece. You do have a favorable staff report before you tonight, and Mr. Ray is here. He can answer hopefully any questions that you have. And I would respectfully ask that you consider granting approval so they can put what appears to be a vacant lot that's served by water and sewer to productive use.
And Mr. Kane, you're also asking that if it is approved, we authorize.
Opinion to the zoning board. What else? I interrupted you and I should answer.
It's okay. You're asking the planner to prepare the written decision consistent with the findings of fact and motion for signature by the chair and recording. So final to be.
Delegated to administrator.
Charlie, did you have a question?
I missed what you said about the parking lot.
Oh, so he's got 26 parking spaces for the insurance bill. So he doesn't have any need for I don't let's call it the lot on our own island. In other words, he doesn't have any need to expand his parking over there. So that piece of property, that bow tie piece, right, on Island Avenue serves no use whatsoever to the insurance business. It's just sitting there and has a vacant piece of property. There's no utility whatsoever. And the insurance business is a non-conforming use. It's an R20 zone. So if you see fit to grant approval, it would preclude commercial development on the R20 lot. I take the position that if someone wanted to someday, you're allowed, if a non-conforming use, you're allowed to expand up to 20% floor area. I think his building's about 4,600 square feet. So theoretically, he could expand the floor area. He could add to his building. I would even think you could do a little small building. Okay, it'd have to be the same type of insurance use on that lot. I keep calling it. And I would think that a house on that lot would be more consistent with the residential area than an expansion of the use, or for him to expand his building and then move his parking lot over that paved line. From a planning perspective, in my mind, more consistent with the comp plan and not totally zone to have a house on that corner lot. Fit in with all the houses on the street. Rather than an expansion of commercial use. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mike.
So these lots were merged, do you know when?
They would have been merged in the late 80s, early 90s, when the town reenacted zoning, and they said if you own two or more lots together and then in common ownership for zoning purposes, they're considered one lot.
For zoning purposes.
Yeah, and that's why we're here, obviously.
Contiguous.
Yeah.
So they were merged then to conform with the zoning at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't this board be creating a non-conforming lot, considering that it's R20 now?
Yeah. We,
And is that legal?
Well, that's
To
what.
create a non-conforming lot of,
So I would respectfully submit to you that there's a legal process, and it's legal if we follow the process and go before you and go before the zoning board. Does it make good planning sense?
well, I'm not arguing that it would conform with the existing lots of record now, which are all non-conforming by size, considering the existing zoning. But I'm just going through a legal exercise that the board would be creating another non-conforming lot of record.
Well, so I guess my answer to that is there's a process for that. We're following the process. It's certainly a question that the zoning board has to ask itself too. And I think you look at the fact that, does it conform with the comp plan? Does it conform with the existing conditions in that neighborhood? Is the property served by water and sewer? Can we put a nice little cape or a ranch house on that lot? And does it make sense from a planning standpoint? And I would say you have the authority to do it. You don't have to do it, but that's why we're before you, following a legal process, asking if you can, asking you to do it.
So Mike, I think,
The zoning is part of the comp plan.
right, but I think even based upon the fact that we approve projects, let's say it's in an R80 zone, and it's inclusionary or part of the comp plan, we approve projects with lots smaller than R80,
In this case,
in an R80 zone.
we're taking a conforming lot and turning it into a we're creating a non-conforming lot from that. And I just,
Do we do that?
And-
Zoning.
Well, zoning makes the final decision.
Make the decision.
You conditionally approve it, zoning,
Can we make it conditionally approved pending zoning?
yes.
Well, it would be, that's what it would be, yes.
And I, yeah, it's a conforming lot. It's a bastardized lot, is what it is.
Well, it's-
I mean, I could, it's conforming, but it's a bit,
it's larger than the existing zoning allows, but that,
Yeah.
zoning is a minimum measurement.
I think unfortunately, we've seen this happen a lot of times where certain lots have gotten tied into certain areas, like, again, if this is, it would be creating an undersized lot of record, however, it fits the area, and this happens a lot.
And I always say, between you and the zoning board, every case is different. Each case is driven by its own facts, as we say. And so this is extremely unique, right? You get this shaped lot, this bow tie thing right here. You have 3 streets. You have
I know,
water and
I know.
sewer, you have all houses.
Attorney Kane, I understand
Yeah.
all of that. I'm talking about the legality of this, and I'd like an opinion from our counselor. I have nothing against,
And I'm sure he'll.
why they want to do it, and the fact that it does conform with the neighborhood. I'm just, in my mind, I'm thinking of the legal,
And we do have a certain test that we have to meet before
I know.
the planning board, but your test is it consistent with the comp plan?
Oh, then,
Is there physical access to it? Do we have water and sewer? Are we creating a lot that's buildable? That's your 5 or 6 part test I used to know.
yeah, and it's also, I also look at the zoning too.
True, but that's the purview of the zoning board. And if you say,
No, it's not solely the purview of the zoning board. It's part of the purview of this board.
I agree, but your test and the zoning test is different, right? You guys have a 6-part test, the zoning board has a 5-part test. The criteria are different. The criteria are different. I guess what I would submit to you, if we follow a legal process and go before you and you see fit, and we go before the zoning board and we meet the test and they look at the uniqueness of this lot and sometimes they say, does it make common sense? All right? When you drive by it, it looks like a vacant lot. To me, it's almost like an eyesore. There's no utility to it.
I don't take any consideration in that. See, I'm not considering any of that. I'm looking at our comprehensive plan. I'm looking at our zone, the zoning, which is part of that. I'm looking at past education and experience of creating non-conforming lots. And it's going against a lot of
I would say to you, if I came to you with a vacant piece of property like this, right? Hear me out here. And it was 30,000 square feet. And I said, let me create 310s right here. You would be right. They don't meet we got a vacant piece of property. This is totally unique. This is a bastardized lot, all right, that was merged in the late 80s. And what do you end up with? You ended up with a business over here and a piece of property over here that has no utility whatsoever.
that's not necessarily true. A business could expand by 20%. You just said that yourself.
By 50, a floor area. A non-conforming use can expand by 50%. So has a planner, okay? Would you want to see a commercial building over here or a big addition here and all the parking spilling? All the parking spilling into a residential area?
Well,
That's something.
the initial start of your argument was a utility of the property. Yes, there is still utility by expanding the existing non-conforming use by what's allowed.
And so you, as someone on the planning board, would you rather see the expansion of a non-conforming use over into this area, or would you rather see a single-family house on a lot, on a piece of property that's zoned residential, that's the same size as every lot on that street? That's something I think you could, it's in your purview.
I'd still like an opinion on this, creating this non.
Go ahead, Mike.
That's all. I rest my case.
I think what we have to consider here is, Mike brought up the comprehensive plan. I think we have to look at it, is it consistent with the comprehensive plan? When we're looking at the surrounding neighborhood, we're keeping with development in that area. I mean, you've got a mix of things. You've got commercial development along the frontage of Farnham Pike, Farnham Ave, but all those streets going into residential, that could be everything small houses, the lots there. This lot is just under, what the average lot size is in this neighborhood. I think there were 67 lots that we looked at. So I think you have to make a finding, is this residential lot consistent with, comprehensive plan and the neighborhood? Scott is to talk about the legal part of, can we do this?
Yeah, so just let me answer the question. I think that has, I think Mr. Kane tried to answer it, but let me try to make it a little bit clearer. There's a reason why you have the ability to seek dimensional relief under the law. And there are standards that are applicable to an applicant before a zoning board who needs to prove that they're entitled to a dimensional variance. So that's a long-winded way of saying, sure, you can ask for relief in carving out a lot like this before the zoning board. The hurdle there, it seems to me, is going to be pretty significant. As you may or may not know, you have to demonstrate a hardship before the zoning board. And it can't be principally for economic gain. It has to be the least relief necessary. There's a lot of standards that they're going to have to meet. But that's not really the question that's before you tonight. Can they seek dimensional relief? Yes, they can. And that's what they're doing. However, you have to address this from a planning perspective, apply your rules, which include whether or not you want to make that recommendation and whether you find it consistent with a comprehensive plan. Does that answer your question, Mr. Moon? No, not completely.
Not completely, but
Okay,
it's sufficient.
okay.
Thank you.
Charlie, did you have a question?
That was where my original question when I asked Tinny about the parking lot, what was gonna be done with, and I kind of agree that it is what I saw, but the legality of what, if it's in the comprehensive plan. If it's all right for that area, if it's all right for that area, if that plan, if it's not, it's not. Simple as that, right? If it conforms, it conforms, and if it goes through, like he said, the legal thing for it.
To follow up on what Charles just said, it's the future land use still shows this as a half-acre residential.
So what was, Scott, what was your final opinion on that? Because this is kind of confusing a little bit. I can see his point, and I can see his point.
I'll just say, we're asking you, can we go to the zoning board and make our case to the zoning board? That's kind of.
Yeah, I mean, you're dealing with different findings is the issue. Just bear with me a second. Forgive me, the eyesight's going as I get older, so There are findings that you need to make under the statute. I can't see it. 45, 23. I can't see the damn thing.
You need to take that course.
Is the concern that
That's legislative findings.
favor of sending?
You're actually just about as good as
I
mine.
think it's a rubber stamp.
Those are legislative findings of intent, not the legal findings. Okay, sorry, folks. Trying to make this as easy as I can by giving you the black letter rather than to conceptualize it. So your charge is different than the zoning board. Your charge is to make the findings under 4523 at SEC. They deal with dimensional variances, which is a whole different element. So the questions you are charged to answer are, and you need to make these findings in the affirmative based on record evidence. The proposed development is consistent with the Smithfield Comprehensive Community Plan or has satisfactorily addressed the issues where there may be inconsistencies. That's where we've been focusing on right now. On whether there's inconsistency with the comprehensive plan, and if there is, he has the right to address that inconsistency and tell you why it still makes sense, okay? The second finding is the proposed development is in compliance with the standards and provisions of the Smithfield zoning ordinance. What that should say is, except if you get relief. That's why your approval would have to be conditional on what the zoning board does. If the zoning board says no, the whole project folds and they don't get to go forward, all right? Sure. The proposed development is in compliance with the standards and provisions of the Smithfield zoning ordinance. In essence, it will be if they get their dimensional relief. So that's why you can make your finding that conditional on the zoning board giving them that dimensional relief.
As a practical matter, I'm new here. Does he have to go before us, before zoning?
Yes, that's also by statute, Mr. D'Ambra. There's a statute that says if you require approval from a planning board and the zoning board, you have to start here, get conditional and a recommendation, and then come back here. Okay, so number 3, there will be no significant negative environmental impacts from the proposed development as shown in the final plan. That language is silly because we're not at final plan, but it's meant to mean when this is all done, there won't be any. With all the required conditions of approval. And then a subdivision as proposed will not result in the creation of individual lots which with such physical constraints to development that building on those lots according to pertinent regulations and building standards would be impracticable. So we don't want to create a lot and carve it out that you can't build something on. That's not the case here. He's representing the board. He can. Lots with physical constraints, development may be created only if identified as permanent open space, and we sometimes do that. We do that with landlocked portions sometimes. All proposed land developments and all subdivision lots shall have adequate and permanent physical access to a public street, which Mr. Kane has represented here. Lot frontage on a public street without physical access shall not be considered in compliance with this requirement. So that's not the case here. Number 6, a subdivision as proposed shall provide for safe circulation of pedestrian and vehicular traffic, for adequate control of surface water runoff, for suitable building sites, and for preservation of natural, historic, and cultural features that contribute to the attractiveness of the community. Kind of a esoteric finding. And then 7 is the design and location of streets, buildings, lots, utilities, drainage improvements, and other improvements in the subdivision as proposed shall minimize flooding and soil erosion, which there's been no issue raised with respect to that. So those are the things you're charged to find and address. The zoning board will then analyze whether the dimensional relief is something that should be awarded under the law based on their own requirements, which include what I was mentioning to you, he's going to have to demonstrate that there's a hardship created by something other than himself. So commonly what happens in that respect is the lot is so laid out, like the elevation on the lot, that can affect the way your building height is, and you can argue, well, it's the way the lot is sloped that created the need for the hardship, those kinds of things. So the zoning board will address that. The least relief necessary, you can't, ask for more relief than you absolutely need in order to do what you're trying to achieve. It can't be principally for financial gain. He's going to have to meet that requirement there. I don't know why he's carving this out. Don't know what he intends to do with it. But when he gets before the zoning board, those are questions he's going to have to answer. So tonight, you need to make your findings based on the elements I read to you. And if you feel that those elements are met, you then can also address the question whether you want to recommend to the zoning board that they give that dimensional relief. I've seen sometimes planning boards say yes to the project, but give a negative recommendation. That can happen sometimes. It's completely up to you. I'm not saying that's this case. I'm just saying one does not necessarily flow from the other. This one probably does, though, frankly, because they're pretty integral to the project. And then he'll be back here, or he'll be back before Mike for final after that. Does that make things a bit clearer? Okay.
Thank you, Scott. Do we have any more questions for Mr. Kane at this point? Go ahead, Ken.
So, Tim, how are you going to, just as a informational for this board as to how we make the recommendation to the zoning board, how are you going to prove the hardship for this piece of land?
Sometimes I hire an expert that comes in, a land use expert. I think I can prove the hardship because he's got no use of it. It's a unique piece of property. He didn't create the hardship. The merger provision created the hardship. All right, they took a piece of property that went like this, that had frontage on 3 streets, and they took that lot, which was a standalone lot, which probably had a house on it 30 years ago. Right. So he didn't create the hardship. He's not doing it primarily for financial gain. He's doing it because he wants to make a use of that portion of the property. There's no use to it right now. So I feel fairly confident that we can meet that test before the zoning board. Okay. And I think we meet, other than zoning, which zoning addresses, I think we meet your planning regs on all squares. I think if there's any inconsistency with the comp plan, because it's caused for that area to be R20, it fits in the neighborhood. It's an infill. You have things in your comp plan that talk about infilling existing pieces of property in developed neighborhoods. So I think despite the fact that it's zoned R20, the fact that it meets this, it's the same size lot as every lot on that street. Obviously, we can get a house on that. We got utilities on that. There's no environmental factors, and it's easy to ingress and egress out of that property.
It actually appears to be bigger than the other house.
Yeah, it is bigger than many of the houses, especially the one right next door. You could put a nice little house on that lot.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So this was originally 6 lots?
Was it?
I'm looking at these numbers. Is that what these are? 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, and 51?
It might have been 6 recorded lots of record. I didn't do a 40 S title search on it. That wouldn't surprise me. Might have been, 6, how they did it back in the day, right?
Well, that's why I'm asking, because it shows like 51 is consistent with the lot behind it, lot 26.
It's been through a few iterations.
Few changes.
I'm sure it became contiguous over the years, lots merged, but it looks like at one point it was 6 separate lots.
It goes way back to those 8,000 square foot lots.
So one of the 6
The
is in back.
surveyor must have picked that up. Patty must- My client's saying that's correct. It was at one point.
Did you own it when it was 6 separate lots? Just out of curiosity.
No, I did not.
Oh, okay. Yeah, please state your name for the record.
Yeah, it's Theodore Ray. I've owned this property since, I believe, December 30th or 31st of 1990. Prior to me purchasing it, this lot that we're proposing was there as a separate plotted buildable lot. The owners, I'm talking about the prior owners, I think we're ready to go under business-wise. The Old Stone Bank was ready to foreclose. They never responded to the town's notice that if you don't tell us you want to leave these as two separate lots, we're going to merge them. And that's what happened.
Were you aware of the fact that they were going to become contiguous, or did you not know?
No, I mean, I knew what I was purchasing, and it was one lot.
Okay.
So I'm just letting you know what happened prior to me.
I didn't know if this was at the same time or if it was,
No,
okay.
and just, I think, prior to that, I'd say roughly, probably 10 years prior, the lot immediately behind my building, which was a separate plotted lot, was sold to, correct me if I'm wrong, I want to say Todd Manny, but I don't think it, I think it's, is it Ron Manny? Was he a police officer here in?
That's to the left of your building. If you're,
No, it'd be directly behind
oh, okay.
my building. And that's the one, Tim, that I was referring to.
Oh, I guess if you're on Waterman Avenue, you're saying?
Yes.
Oh, okay, I'm looking at Bruno Ave, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and that, so that lot was sold to Mr. Manning.
Mhm.
And I'm presuming that some of those others over the previous years were done as well.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any more questions for Mr. Kane or the applicant?
Tim, the variance that would be needed before zoning, is that the typical what we call a DD variance, or is that?
Yeah, it's a dimensional. You don't give it, zoning gives it. You conditionally approve the lot. And if you want, I keep a favorable recommendation. That's up to you, because I think it makes an overall view, without getting hyper-technical and stuck in the weeds, I think it makes good planning sense. I think it makes common sense. That's your purview, not mine. And so you conditionally approve the lot, and then we have a case to make before the zoning board. They ask lots of questions, and we got to make a case before the zoning board. And if we do, we do, and if we don't, we don't. So, but if we can.
For final.
Back to Mike for final.
For final.
Okay. But we don't get to go before zoning unless you guys give us a shot. Yeah. To go.
If he can make a case, which he has done here, then he is legally entitled to it. I see, in my opinion, no reason to not let this go to the zoning board. It fits the area. John, what do you think? We'll pull the board a little bit.
It's definitely unique. I get Mike's, definitely. 'Cause I remember in the past, we dealt with, I don't know, every case is definitely unique, but I can remember one in Greenville, I don't know, it was last year before, where there was a lot that was kind of landlocked between a couple lots, but I remember we dealt with the concept of we'd be creating a non-conforming lot. That has happened in the past. So I definitely get that. I do see how this fits, and creating this lot does definitely go with everything that's already here. And, hundreds of these lots are non-conforming. So I do get that. It's too bad we have to base it on that and to a degree, but that's kind of the reality that we're dealing with. So, yeah, and, I would say, let them make their plea of zoning.
Correct.
Ditto.
Ken?
I agree.
I agree.
I agree. Mike's got a valid point and concern. However, I think ultimately the fact that we allow the project to go before the zoning does not necessarily make a decision in terms of the actual zoning issue. We're here to determine whether or not in totality the proposed subdivision is consistent with the plan. And taking all that as a whole, I think it is conditioned on zoning board's rule. We're not making an opinion one way or another on the ultimate issue of zoning. If that's the case, that's for it.
Al?
I agree.
Mike?
I guess I'll stick with my original.
Okay. So that being said, we need a motion.
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion, please. That the board accept this memo preliminary plan submission and supporting documents into the record of the meeting. That the planning board recommend that the zoning board of review grant the request zoning relief. Also, that the planning board grant approval of the preliminary plan with the following conditions. 1, that the applicant receive the required dimensional relief from the zoning board of review. And 2, that all utility permits and approvals be submitted with the final plan submission, and omit number 3, that it has to come back to us, not administratively.
So we have a motion on the floor. And this motion includes a positive recommendation to the zoning board, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any more discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Mike? Any abstain? The ayes have it. So, Mr. Kane, you will have to come back for final if everything goes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck.
Good luck.
Thank you. Quick.
Oh, they were amended.
Back to the solar.
Back to the sun. Here comes the sun.
It's the Scott and Mike show.
Let the sun, let the sun shine.
Yeah, right. Hopefully tonight.
Hey, Mike, do you resend it, this stuff to us next time? Or Walton Development?
He never does, believe me.
I know,
You throw that away, you'll never get it back.
but he doesn't have problems sending us
Still what?
13-page memos.
Still what? Yeah, hang on to it.
Scott, 13-page memo via email.
I just want to make sure, because, I put it in my files. Yeah. I don't want to
Yeah,
forget to bring it.
Before you go out the door.
You always have to electronic. We're gonna go through all this.
It'd be nice if we had, what's it called, those Microsoft Surfaces, so we could look at them again.
Look into that.
He won't.
Okay, that'd be nice, right? If we all had Microsoft Surfaces?
Think of the technical issues we could have with all those.
But actually have something that works. Go ahead, Scott.
Did you announce the
Floor's
next
all yours.
item on the agenda, Mr. Chairman?
What's that?
Did you announce the next item on the agenda?
I can.
Please do. Or have you thrown that away already?
There we go. Let me go back, sorry. Number 2, reviews proposed amendments to the zoning ordinance, including 4.3 table of uses, 4.4 supplementary use regulations, section M, adult use cannabis, 5.11 solar energy systems, 5.11.2 definitions, 4.11.4 accessory solar energy systems, 5.11.7, additional requirements for principal solar energy systems in residential zoning districts, R20, R20M, RMed, R80, and R200. And 5.11.8, additional requirements for principal solar energy systems in non-residential zoning districts.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we've had discussions about amendments that we've been endeavoring to make already. I'm not going to go through all that again. This afternoon, you received an email with the latest version of the corrections, which contain my comments from today. Basically, what I've done is gone through and tried to clarify what I perceive to be a gap in what we had for the statutory layout. There was ambiguity in the prior language that suggested that if you were 1,750 square feet, you weren't small and you weren't large. You were nothing. So we clarified the language to make that clear. You get to that number, including that number. And then same issue with 20,000 square feet, which is the other cutoff. We clarified some language there. Made it clear that large-scale solar energy systems would be prohibited on all lots zoned for open space. That specific language we added in subsection D to 5.11.2 in the definitions. Again, just clarifying more the language in the definitions about how those numbers work. The section on permitted uses and review process, 5.11.3, we clarified that accessory solar energy systems are reviewed under 5.11.4, not section 4, since section 4 doesn't exist. We then clarified the procedure for review if you're a small-scale solar energy system. So the way it was set up in the prior ordinance or the existing ordinance is that the small-scale solar would have gone to the technical review committee. But that's not where it ends, because the technical review committee is merely an advisory committee. They have no authority to decide anything. So it has to go somewhere from there. We made it clear that it would be, in essence, the building official would be issuing a building permit consistent with the ordinance. So that's what that language does in 5.11.3B, small little a. We move on to language in 5.11.4, subsection B, again, clarifying to make sure the numbers work the way they should. Taking out that review of technical review committee reviewing at 20,000 square feet. And then move on down to 5.11.7, subsection B is stricken. In essence, there won't be any large-scale solar energy systems in an R80 or R200, which was a policy decision you folks made. Then we go to then 5.11.8, subsection B. We had a good laugh about this today. It says, in its existing form, principal solar energy systems in the V zoning district shall only be rooftop mounted. I don't know how you have a principal use, solar energy use, that's rooftop mounted, unless there's a giant roof that exists that does nothing but is a roof. Otherwise, the stuff under the roof is probably the principal use. So that makes no sense. We struck it out completely. We probably don't want that. So I'm picturing Auntie Em and the roof flying away, and so yeah, we probably don't want that. So let's get rid of that. And that really is the sum and substance of what you find in the amended ordinance before you. I think it's cleaned up and clear, and to the point where it's ready to go to the town council pending your comments. It's not here.
No, I think we covered everything in the rest.
I just have one question.
Shoot.
I asked the last night about farms. The ability for farm, for ground, how much size it because a lot of farmers, they need anything they can around nowadays. Electricity. But they need anything for farmers. So
farms that would go through the same thing as the residential and commercial? Most farms are in the residential zone, so yeah, they're gonna do it. I'm just asking because I know the farmers, and they really doesn't. No, I know. I just wondered if it's a yes or no. Well, if farms are in the zone that allows them, yeah, why not?
Could they do it as an accessory use?
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah, they're allowed as accessory uses.
Any other questions? I think we'd be looking for a motion to approve.
We have to read, how do you want this approved, Scott? By section? Changes to 5.112?
If everything's
I think-
the same, we could say in like totality, no?
What we would do, I would recommend that we mark a copy of the last circulated version that you
Okay.
got by email
As,
as Board's Exhibit 1,
okay.
and any motion can specifically reference that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, go ahead.
wasn't there a 30-year or 99-year question last, I asked you guys to do homework?
Oh.
Was it on this?
I think maybe you're thinking about the decommissioning part of it, but that's a stab in the dark. I have a vague memory of something about that, but frankly, I don't know if that's this
Okay,
or something else.
okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Do you want to continue it so you can look up what that question was? or-
I remember, there was something about.
I can barely see the screen. Come on, guys.
You want to take a break so you can go back to the video?
Back to the video.
It was an LMI
It was
question,
an
actually.
LMI.
Yeah,
That's
You're
an
exactly
LMI.
right.
Correct.
You're exactly right.
Yeah.
It was an LMI question.
Yeah.
Rick takes his question.
But what threw me is the decommissioning does reference 30 days and, all this stuff. So anyway,
No, that was definitely an LMI question.
yeah.
So we will need a motion to approve Board's Exhibit 1.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve Board's Exhibit 1 for solar energy systems.
But it also includes the marijuana ordinance.
Where is that?
We didn't-
I don't have that.
That wasn't part of what I did today. That was just solar, what you got initially was.
We're only approving what was given to us today.
Let's do it piece by piece. Let's do the solar first.
Okay.
So,
So that's what we're doing, the solar, the
Yeah.
Board's Exhibit 1.
Board's Exhibit 1, solar energy systems.
So that'll be inclusive of 5.11, 5.11.2, 4.11.4, 5.11.7, and additional requirements for principal solar energy systems in residential zoning districts, and 5.11.8, additional requirements for principal solar energy systems in non-residential zoning districts.
Correct. So moved.
We have a motion. You have a second?
Second.
Second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? The ayes have it. So now we're on to 4.3, Table of Uses, 4.4, Supplementary Use Regulation, Section M, Adult Use Cannabis.
correct. And Mr. Chairman, I think you recall the last version of the ordinance that we were discussing had a lot of definitions in it that were not needed for our local ordinance. And just to refresh all your recollections, we put this out for referendum. Do we want to sell marijuana in the confines of Smithfield? The answer was no, which is why we're doing this ordinance now, to make that clear. It's prohibited. This ordinance otherwise models what was suggested by the state. And you can see some reference to that within the language of the statute itself. So any questions about what's been proposed? Hopefully we've made it clearer.
Sure. Does anybody have any questions on this? Hearing none, we need a motion to accept.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to accept the supplementary use regulations 4.4, 4.3 table of uses.
Section M.
Section
M.
M.
Marriott, adult use cannabis.
Adult use cannabis.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second?
Motion and a second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it.
Matter of clarification, did you adopt 4.3, 4.4D for the solar side? I didn't hear if that was in the.
That was what we just did.
Yes.
I heard N, that's why I didn't hear.
Yes, he said 4.4, then he said 4.3.
4.4, 4.3, it was the way it was on the,
For D, which is solar.
oh, for solar? Yes.
4.3 and 4.4D adopted in the motion for the solar side.
No, it wasn't in the solar.
That was for cannabis.
Correct, but when you did your solar motion.
We did 5.11,
5.11.2,
4.11.4, 5.11.7, additional requirements for principal solar energy systems in residential zoning districts, and 5.11.8.
Part of the solar ordinance had the table in mentioned 4.3, 4.4.
no, 4.3 and 4.4 are the marijuana uses.
I understand, but there's 4.3 and 4.4.
No, so we adopted the whole exhibit.
We adopted the
Board's
whole exhibit
one.
as Exhibit 1.
What I was saying, that's part of
Yeah, we adopted the whole thing.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anything else?
Mike, I know there's some activity going on in Club 44. Can you give us an update, please?
Yeah, A&A Wrecking has the contract, I guess, to do it. They've done their asbestos, look at it, doing the building vacant and just keep proceeding.
Okay.
Next 2 weeks, in access.
Yeah, I guess they put up fencing today, I think.
Somebody said something.
Okay. But they haven't given you a timeline?
No, I mean, they've cut the sewer line and. Should be.
Okay. Thank you.
Nothing else?
Tired of
Motion to
looking at it.
adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.